a discussion about the importance of Jallianwala Bagh, which is the massacre that happened while the British ruled India, and with my grandparents and my mom, and I'm just gonna find out what they think of it and what's the importance of it.
You know, Jallianwala Bagh happened on a very holy day of Baisakhi, which is a New Year's Day for all the South Indians, and a very, very holy day also for all around India. And so my mother told me about this. She was 6 years old when it happened, and it was quite a big massacre and everybody was upset. And so this really fueled the independence movement. Okay? And what do you guys think of?
Well, you know, I think it was critical because it was 1919, which India had actually participated in World War I, which had ended in 1918. They had done there had been a lot of goings on during that time, and a lot of help by the Indian British soldiers to help fight against the World War I, except for a couple of provinces. Punjab was one of them that really didn't participate. They refused to participate. And it was very significant that, and very frustrating, I think, to the British that there was non-participation in Punjab. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And the thing that bothered me most when I read about the Jallianwala Bagh is the soldiers who were asked to shoot against the people in the park were Indians. So they were getting Indian troops to kill Indian people, and that was a very, very tragic thing for me, and
the gruesome, go ahead.
For the people.
The gruesome nature of it was a lot of women and children who were killed.
And it was a peaceful gathering. It was not any.
Except there were also
violence.
lots of men.
Yes, yes.
Men and
No,
women,
and they were
but
protesting. To be honest, they were protesting.
They were
They were
protesting.
protesting that there were a couple of people who had been jailed, and they were peacefully protesting, but they were not doing anything wrong. They were assembling. And I think there was a lot of frustration on Colonel Dyer's part, Brigadier General Dyer's part, that he was frustrated that there was non-participation by people. So he wanted to prove a point. And so what the worst part about the whole thing is that they didn't let people escape. They locked the doors. They locked the gates. People couldn't get out. They jumped into wells. It was a horrible thing to happen. It was a point that the British were trying so hard to make India do what it wanted to, but it was really the end, right?
Yes.
The end of the possibility that the British were ever going to keep India at that point, because the force of the people was going to be too much. This was a horrible event. We went there. Actually, Srivats went there. And when he was very little, and he doesn't remember, he was about a year and a half old.
Yeah.
It's not a large space. It's not a huge park or anything like that. The well is still there.
And there's a huge bullet-shaped
monument for all the people who died there. And also, it is important for us to see that violence of this nature, and essentially in the end, due to Gandhi, the whole movement became non-violent. Okay? There's also a violent movement which happened when a fellow named Bhagat Singh threw a bomb in Parliament. Okay? And it's kind of, I'll tell you a story about this later on.
But Fati,
And after India gained independence, did they kill Colonel Dyer or?
No.
He was, I believe, and I don't know what happened exactly. I'm sure he was punished. They had to. They were really forced they couldn't have let him go.
The worldwide reaction was quite...
The British couldn't have let it go. They couldn't have just said, sorry, you're...
Yeah.
The British military wouldn't have kept
My
him there
bad.
anyway.
No.
They do.
We don't know.
I don't know, to be honest.
We don't know.
But I suspect that he was taken away from his command at that point.
I'm sure there's
too much of a publicity risk.
Huge
also.
reaction.
So Patti, what about women and children, that idea of women and children in India?
Women and children are always extremely protected, like any other culture also, but in India at that time was
in our culture.
more. And so when they turned their guns, the men were asked to shoot the women and children, it must have been really very traumatic for
They
people
sh-
who were shooting.
They showed the shell casings on how much they had under the gun, and they had like a whole handful per person, and there were so many people.
They said it was anywhere between 300 and 1,000 people they think were killed. They really don't.
We don't know.
300 to 1,700. 1,700 is the Indian count. 300 is the British count.
Right, and they looked at all.
Somewhere in between, possibly it was.
Except the British also think that that they probably wouldn't. They aren't the culprits for killing the people who jumped into wells. They certainly
Possibly.
threatened them, so they
Yeah.
might not count those as
Well, but they
deaths
couldn't
up there.
escape. It was a choice between covering up your child in many cases or trying to jump in the well so that you didn't get shot. So there was a hope that you could have
Except were
survived.
they long range things, so if you were
Yeah.
fast, you
They're
could
rifles.
They were right.
They're rifles. These were Gurkha. Many of them were
From the Himalayan
Himalayan
kingdoms
kingdoms
themselves.
that were wonderfully good shots, and they still are. They're in the army in India as well. Even
There's
now.
a whole
Yeah,
regiment
you
called the
see,
Gurkha regiment.
You see, except now they don't use those. They use machine guns.
No, of course not. But at
yes,
the
you
time,
See
these were
people
the
at
best of the guns.
airport
Right.
Okay.
carrying around these.
M16s and stuff
okay.
like that. Yes.
And
But-
as well,
Purma?
so did they asked Colonel Dyer, like he went to the British because they were asking him questions after that event happened in
Right.
the film. And they asked if the tank could fit through, would you have still used it? And he said yes.
No, I think he was at the end of his wits' end. These were people who were not participating. They were not supporting They had not supported the British in the kingdom, in the empire. Had not supported the empire in this state. So he was very upset about that. He wanted. It was like saying to a child to clean their room over and over and over again. And to do the things I tell you to do. Just because I tell you to do it, you should do it. This was his example of saying to them,
But-
we're going to do it. And what happens? You guys are, you're a kid, right, Shri? If I keep telling you something over and over again, at some point you're going to say, I'm not going to do it.
But you can
You
see,
don't think it's right.
you can see, but the main thing here is it was very, very violent and gruesome, as you possibly saw in the movie. And that has an impact on people. Okay?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so there was a real impact and a change. It was no going back for the British.
I think it was says something about the thinking of the British as the overlords at that point, and how they considered the life of an Indian to prove their point in some way, and they didn't think it was highly precious.
I think that's a great point. Bhakti. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
You are welcome. And so thank you for having this discussion. It really helped. And thanks.